Thank you for joining us. This is Brave New History. We're here with Nathan. His YouTube channel is Spiritual Level of Being. Check it out. I'll put it into the description here so you can check his channel out. And so, yeah, thanks for coming on. And
Lovely being here.
yeah, so glad you're feeling better. I know you were feeling a little bit sick because you had eaten chicken.
Yeah, chicken and
so
pork.
now
One
I'm
of them made me
sure,
sick.
yeah. So now I'm sure you're on the straight and narrow, no more meat. You're dedicated to veganism this time because, I mean, you suffered.
Vegetarian, not vegan, vegetarianism. I'm going to start that again next week.
Yeah,
Next week
there
I'll
you
start
go.
that. At the moment, just eating healthy soups and all that sort of stuff.
Yep, good deal. So yeah, glad you're feeling better. And yeah, so we were talking about Gnosticism and this idea that all souls are female, which seems like, I mean, clearly not all Gnostics believed it, but you wonder, what is a man then? If everybody's female and the monad is the only man,
Well, as I
then
said, it depends on the types of Gnostics as well.
yeah.
But with this being said, what it really means is with the Valentinian Gnostics, they seen all souls as females. Other Gnostics seen males having a female soul and females having a male soul. So we're all carrying masculine and feminine energies within us. Now, what they've seen is the ultimate goal was the cosmic marriage of divine self. So marriage between you and your soul, basically. So connecting two and one, mind and soul. So that being said, you're not really a body. You're a mind, a soul. So the monad being an individual mind, us being all individual minds making up the one single mind of the monad. So in a sense, we're experiencing this reality. Well, God, Mother, Father, God, there was Gnostics referred to it even as is living experience through us. So all life itself is learning through us. And with the soul being female, they seen Jesus' soul as Sophia. So the emergence of the two. And then you also had some that seen Mary Magdalene as carrying Sophia, and that was her full redemption through Yeshua, Jesus. So with this, it was really not really just between male and female. So the soul was also within you. So your marriage of your own self, the emergence of the true you, the divine spark. So acknowledging who you truly are basically was the meaning of this divine marriage of the soul. So it was pretty much achieving your inner Christ. So trying to be like Jesus themselves, where if you go in Christianity, to be too much like Jesus, to be like God, it's taboo. So the Gnostics themselves were really aiming to be like Christ. They see themselves as Christians, followers of Christ. They didn't refer themselves as Gnostics. That was a term that was given to them by the church hierarchy, so they could easily label them off, easier to persecute them that way. And so you had Essenes and Ebionites, and you had all these groups were Gnostics, and many of them didn't refer to themselves as Gnostics, and there were many different ideals of Gnosticism. You had a freelance group, which is basically most of them. They didn't belong to really any particular faction, but they were just labeled as this particular group. And this particular group would be the ones that would have been speaking in mystery schools, and they were the ones that seen the opposite of you as your soul, basically. So males having female, and then females having a male soul. So the emergence of the one. But when you actually got married with your partner, this was also seen as the emergence of two souls, in a sense, becoming one. So again, the connection of masculine and feminine energies. So the female no longer being female, becoming male, in a sense, because it's divine within herself, basically. So she's achieved cosmic marriage of Sophia or the Father. And this also goes into Barbello, which is the secret unknowable God in Gnostic terms. And what Barbello is all of us. So male, female. So the source of creation and is everything, basically. Pretty much it's a mind, the monad, in a sense. So yeah, that's basically.
So you would have two souls, I'd presume, right? One male, one female. Is that what we're saying?
In a sense, but merging into one was the ultimate goal. So they didn't see themselves as split, as becoming one, in a sense. So it all goes back to connecting two and one. Well, even what Jesus said, that's what this symbol here means. When you see it in in pictures of Jesus and all that sort of stuff. It means two in one, connect mind and soul. So it's, yeah, basically it's meaning of it.
Okay, and that's in the Valentinian tradition with the bridal chamber.
Yes, as well. And
Sacrament.
all that talk of the bridal chamber is what it's referring to as the cosmic marriage of your soul, realizing the divine spark. So connecting your masculine and feminine energies. So basically discovering the true you, your true divine spark within you. So your connection to the Mother, Father, God, basically, to the cosmic mind or the monad.
Gotcha. And I mean, and it's just a metaphor that, like, let's say somebody is gay or lesbian, they'd still have it
Same
wouldn't be
sort
a
of thing,
same
yes.
sex.
Yes, and that was the reason why they also seen gays and lesbians. That's why Gnostics had no problem with them. They seen people as living in the past life. They might have been a female, so they're seeking that partner. So basically, love has no sex. So love will always seek love. So that's their answer to gays and lesbian people, is why they had no problem. They didn't see it as anything unnatural because it was just someone that carried more feminine energy or more masculine energy. And that was basically it. So the soul was always seeking its other half, its divine twin or its twin flame, its divine spark, basically. So its other half, so a part of itself to ultimately live its experience, to truly discover itself, in a sense. So if some that weren't married, they had to marry themselves, basically, so that they discovered the divine spark and merged the two in one. So it was everything symbolic, basically. So big symbolic meanings.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that jives with the Gospel of Thomas, doesn't it? Two becoming one, make what is above like below.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's also why they've seen Jesus and Mary sort of thing. You got the mother, you got two Marys. So you got the mother, then you got the wife. So you've got the fall, redemption, you've got the birth and the death, basically, as well. So this is where it all comes into play. So they're all symbolic, basically. Jesus and even disciples, like the 12 disciples is 12 parts of your brain, basically. And even with the kingdom of heaven being within you, a lot of this sort of talks was handed throughout mystery schools, and even ancient Egyptians mentioned this too. I was mentioning to you before, I was actually doing some research on the Mandaism. I was reading their Book of Rabbah, I think it is, Giza Rabbah. And they even mentioned about the female soul. So I actually see why they talk about this particular group being the missing link between the Essenes and the Gnostics. And it looks like they also got into the female soul as well. And I think they also referred to her as wisdom. But the Mandaeans have a little bit of a different belief to the common Gnostics. You know, I'm not 100% too familiar with Mandaeans. I know a basic bit with them. But yeah, it's interesting to see that how they mention the female soul as well in their writings, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, where Mandeanism as the missing link, where, you know, I'm inclined, and it's very much a minority opinion, right? But that Mandeanism was the origin of Christianity. I mean, it has other
I don't think so. But yes,
Yeah.
what you just said, the other influences, 100%, mate. Like, I agree with that bit. It definitely has other influences with it as well. A bit of Islam as well. Zoroastrianism is also mixed in with a bit of Mandaism. And they would have changed over the years as well, because they also suffered persecutions from Catholics and also Islam. They had to pay the Muslim government a couple of years ago $1 million for protection. And I think some of them recently revoked it, so they're starting to get hunted down again. So a lot of them fled to here to Australia and other parts of America, and that's the reason they fled. But over years, all religions change and have adaptations of everything. Even Christianity had adaptations from ancient Egypt. And I actually seen by reading some of the Mandaean writings, and I actually reckon Christianity itself was a continuation of these old ancient mystery schools and old religions, in a sense, or a completion in a sense. So that's one reason you see some symbols that are the same in a lot of Christianity, like the cross. They have the anchor over in Egypt, and then you got this hand symbol with the eye. That's in every religion across the globe. So I see Christianity, since early Christians were being like Gnostics and understood this and seen kind of like early omnists in a sense. They've seen a bit of truth in every bit of doctrine. So, but not all of them had this way of thinking. It was ones that really understood the secret meanings, which believed Jesus had secret teachings as well. And that would have been the early Gnostics in a sense. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you had mentioned the symbol of the anchor, where I wonder what's going on with that.
Level of being. is what those symbols mean as well.
What's
Masculine
that?
and feminine energy. It means masculine and feminine energy and level of being. So life, death, or the past, the future, lower level conscious, higher level conscious, hell, heaven, lower dimensions, higher dimensions. So
Like,
it's basically you.
how does the anchor fit into that?
Well, that's what the cross means. It's a plus symbol, basically. And that's just what it means. So it's life, death. So you got the cross, lower
Yeah.
level of being, higher level of being. And what happens is when they talk about this, in one of my last chats with you, I mentioned how they put Jesus on the cross to mock him because he mentioned carry a cross. This is what it meant, carry your level of being. So most people just distract themselves until they die. So when you do shitty things, you go lower levels of being. You do good things, compassionate things, you go higher level of being. So what separates a nasty person from a good person is their level of being. So carry your mind is basically what this means. So that's the mystery school adaptation of it anyway. So ones that really understood this sort of stuff. So in a way, the high priest back then as well had a different religion to the public. Same with the pharaohs and all that sort of stuff. So the mystery schools, ones that truly understood it, which is later got released to the public when such religions start to crash and lose popularity. So they start to discuss the secret teachings out in public. And from there, that's where that sort of movement really spread, discussing secret teachings and stuff. But it wasn't always accepted, and a lot of them were persecuted, and
Yeah. Well, so I wondered, just to belabor the point, let's see here. Let me fix my camera real quickly if I could. Oh, shoot. Let's see. That's not a good start to the show. All right. With the anchor specifically, let's see. Like with like a ship, like a ship being set into place, right? That it can drift off. Like, I wonder why. Like, so we see the cross, and I get the symbolism in that, and of course, there's a cross on the anchor.
Yep, as well. That also means masculine and feminine energies as well.
But, I mean, why an anchor out of things? Like, maybe like you could do a lot of things that look like.
Well, water was very sacred as well, especially to the ancients, because if you didn't have clean water, it was disastrous. And a lot of ancient cultures baptized themselves in water, and ancient Christians, like Gnostics, especially these ones, they seen water as the essence of the Holy Spirit. So they seen water as pretty much a gift from the divine in a sense. So water is universal, and it is. People wouldn't have. It took a while to people to realize that there was water on other planets. You know what I mean? So that's a very advanced way of thinking. So they've seen water as very, very sacred in a sense. So they've seen the water as we carry water. So water is pretty much what sparks life. So that again with the link of the mother. So that's one reason you have the anchor in. You have the fish as well, and even fish means masculine and feminine energy as well. And you can turn it into another symbol. I think it's when you combine them two, it becomes like that, and also represents vagina and stuff like that. So again, creation. So
the Vesica Pisces.
Yes, that's the word. I forgot the name. So all these sort of symbols are all connected. They all have similar meanings as well, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean, are you familiar with the Vesica Pisces a bit?
Yeah, little bits. I just forgot the name. I know it has many meanings. It doesn't just mean masculine and feminine energy. It also means eternity. So it also means it's another symbol for Alpha Omega, never beginning, never ending, or beginning and never ending. Many different meanings. And this is one reason why Gnostics were huge on symbolism. So symbolism to them was everything in a sense. They love symbolism and maths. So they were very advanced people, especially for their time. Too advanced for their time, I would say. Especially they even knew about the world spinning. And that's clever, very, very clever. Especially, like, I see a lot of that adaptations from ancient Greeks. They got into the science, and they loved Plato as well. Right? Gnostics loved Plato. Yeah. And Plato was big on the eternal mind. So you had a lot of ideas of these people, mystery schools, meeting up in secret, discussing maths and science. And they were talking about symbolism, and maths could hold the answer to the universe and to the gods or God. And so this was a very big Gnostic way of thinking in a sense. So you had the word Gnostic is so misused. in a sense, you know what I mean? It just means really you know. So we're all a bit Gnostic and we're all agnostic at the same time. Like agnostic means you don't know, Gnostic just means you know. There's also meaning of knowledge as well. So it's your own self-experience. So Gnosticism really is your own personal path. It's yours. It doesn't belong to really anyone else in a sense, which is why the church hated it, because it took away the power of the church hierarchy and gave it to you. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good point of so much of the early church not liking Gnostics. You wonder why I don't think that there's anything that crazy about it, right? I don't know why they were particularly attached to the Old Testament.
Well, I see a lot of them attached to the Old Testament in a sense with the Greco-Romans in a sense is because there was communication between some Jews and even the Greeks. The Greeks were even writing the Torah. And there were some Jews, this would have been seen as heresy now, but there were some Jews that believed Zeus and Yahweh were the same person, same being, which is pretty interesting as well. And so even when you have the exile, when they exiled Jews, they didn't just exile Jews, they also exiled a lot of Christians. And they went to Egypt. That's why you see a lot of ancient scriptures discovered in Egypt, which is pretty cool. But the Jews that stayed were ones that said Yahweh and Zeus are the one and the same. So you had not all of the Jews were kicked out, just like not all the Christians were kicked out. The Christians that were stayed, they were ones that said, "Oh no, it wasn't the Romans that killed Jesus; it was the Jews. You guys are cool, you know." So where Gnostics they blame the Romans in a sense. So, go off and really blame anyone. They just see Jesus as dying to free us from ignorance, to get rid of the old gods and stuff like that, which they sort of just seen as, not all Gnostics did. Some Gnostics believed in Yahweh Baoth and the Demiurge, and some Gnostics just seen the Yahweh Baoth and the Demiurge as the governments of the time. So they seen all the governments as corrupt and in a state of ignorance in a sense, which is pretty interesting. I've quite liked that particular group myself. And that's one reason they were hated as well, because if you spoke up against dukes or kings back then, you're going to be killed and most likely imprisoned,
Yeah.
So I also see Yeshua and that sort of stuff. I see him being sort of anti-hierarchy at the time as well. And that's one reason I see him as why they say he was speaking blasphemy, because again, he was giving the power to the people. He had an opposite message to the Old Testament, and to the Pharisees. And if some of this is still in the Bible. I see the Bible as massively changed, but you can't change everything. There's lots of Gnostic elements into the Bible as well. And you have Jesus going up to the Pharisees saying they do the work of their father, who is the devil, and he's been a liar and a murderer since the beginning. So that's pretty interesting in a sense. But he said that if you knew me, you'll also know the Father also. So he's telling them that their own divine spark. So you can see he was for the people in a sense. He was against the hierarchies at the time. And just like Gnostics against the hierarchies. So I see it as a against power sort of thing. So like the rebels of the age, which is pretty interesting.
I kind of see Hashem and the Father as different beings. That the Father seems all, just like the New Testament, it's light and life and mercy, where the Old Testament is negotiation and harshness.
Yes,
and
I like that word, negotiation.
Yeah, where it's the law, but you're negotiating the law.
That's a great point, Elliot.
Yeah. And it's easy to see why people thought that this guy wasn't a good guy, right? And it's
There's some very questionable
transactional
acts.
What's that?
There's some very questionable acts. I was quite surprised when I seen him ordering people to eat poo baked in actually I ordered them to bake bread and wood dried in human poo, and they're only allowed to have limited cups of water, and that's pretty fucking harsh. I don't see that as very loving.
It almost seems like an 8-year-old playing Minecraft, and that's what he's telling his Minecraft people to do.
Yeah, 100%. So some very questionable acts, but again, a lot of these myths are just borrowed from other religions as well. Like a lot of the Bible was taken from Epic of Gilgamesh, and Epic of Gilgamesh is also borrowed from other religions too. I forgot the particular names. I actually found a couple of names that they borrowed from as well, and I'm going to look up some of this as well. But all religions borrow from each other. It's always taken place, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But that's why there's little truth in everything. Like it's just depends on your truth, whatever you make of it, in a sense. As long as it makes you a good person, you know. Like I often do a lot of videos just show a bit of my dislike on Yahweh or Yahweh worshippers. It's not so much like I dislike it; it's more I just dislike the nasty bits. If you take out the filth and the hate, I have no problems. You know, like I think unconditional love. The world could use more love. You know, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. Plato kind of had the demiurge, and there's a lot of
the first to
what's
write
that?
of it. I think he might have been the first to write of the demiurge or the demiurgos, is what he referred to it as. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, or at least that name. Although I would look at it, and I've talked about this on other videos that even the old Dharmic religions, like as far back as you go, like there's Brahma, who within Hinduism we don't have the same problem of theodicy, because Brahma just kind of messed it up, right? And my takeaway from that is that so Brahma's forgetful, right? And he doesn't do things quite right.
Well, a lot of religions borrowed from Hinduism as well, so I can quite see that as well, especially with the whole idea of like demiurge being like a blind idiot god and stuff, doesn't realize what he's doing either. So yeah, lots of adaptations from all different cultures. Like one stage we were all pretty much one, basically like we would have been communicating the same, not like a language so much like now. It would have been like grunts and smacking stuff and tunes, maybe some whistles and stuff, early human. So like we all migrated, so obviously there would be some sort of trade going on between early humans, and from that we would have shared stories. So our evolution is all one, we've all evolved. We're all one species of humans. We haven't got all these different species of humans anymore because we've all become us, But all this would have taken the course of trade, story, sex, and all this become us and handed down through old traditions. We've got some of these stories that go back to the Neanderthal age and even before that and stuff, So really it would have all begun would have been with burials and stuff, That's yeah. So we definitely have a connection on all religions,
Yeah, you wonder about Neanderthal religions. Like what did they believe with kind of
I think they would have been very diverse. And I do know they worshipped, in a sense, this statue, and to them it was fertility and Mother Earth, which is pretty cool. And then they also had a way they buried the dead. They buried it like in a circle with the spirals, and they would put their bodies like this. And I think they would have certain plants, and it would be a male and female, and it would be the way they were buried. But that way they were buried and stuff pretty much represented the reincarnation, which is really cool. So reincarnation is the first belief. It's what I've sort of gathered with my sort of research. But earliest belief would be that. And then from there, it's dived into gods and become more complex over time as we evolved,
Yeah, you wonder, like the earliest deity was seen as female.
Yes.
And so you wonder if there's like a reincarnation aspect to Neanderthal religion. You wonder. Yeah, I've never really considered that, like kind of proto-hominid or what it...
Well, even though some of the cave paintings they were doing, they had this symbol. That's the monad. So circumput. They also had the spirals in their cave paintings, and that represents reincarnation too. So I think they would have been complex in a sense. I think it would have varied between tribes, Like we even see little bits of adaptations of some of their faith in the Native Americans, maybe even in what's in the Australian indigenous people too. We have some very old stories that could be older than the Epic of Gilgamesh. Could be the oldest. We don't really know because of the dating system. But they even had the rainbow serpent and with the story of creation. But the only thing is with indigenous Australians, there was all different tribes. They spoke different language and they had different beliefs in a sense that they didn't really believe in the god. They more worshipped the land. It's kind of like the Druids. I also see a lot of Gnosticism coming back from the Druids as well. And a lot of what we know about Druids is just Roman propaganda. But they didn't really believe in gods. Their gods to them were their ancestors. And a Druid just means someone whose knowledge was vast and great. And if you see the word knowledge, even the idea of Barbello could go back from them with the word, even abracadabra, meaning going back to the word with Barbello, so meaning a magical word in a sense, or having magical properties to it, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah.
everything's adapted from somewhere, But yeah, I
Yeah.
see it as a bit of Egyptian and Druidism a little bit. With that would have also began with some of the early Gnostics and the mystery schools and stuff. And the reason why I say these particular groups is because Egypt was hiring Celtic mercenaries, and they liked the Druid people. Some of them took Egyptian wives, and Egyptians even took Druids as wives as well. So there was very much a big communion between these two people. There was even an attempted usurpation from some Celtic mercenaries. They didn't succeed, and they were exiled. I think they were killed as well, but they tried to usurp the Egyptian throne, which is pretty interesting. So, yeah, the Celtic people were very much well loved. They were hired throughout all Europe as mercenaries. So, obviously, some of their faiths and cultures would have adapted into ancient Egypt as well. But Egypt was very multicultural as well back then. So, they're pretty impressive, for that reason. So I actually wonder how they viewed the soul as well, right? Because I know some Egyptians, they also had some similarities with Gnosticism as well. And I've noticed that even with some of their books, like they've got secret meanings, and that's where you would have had the mystery schools interpreting you. They even mentioned about the Book of the Dead, about you being God, or your limbs being gods. So it's very interesting. It could be taken all different ways, symbolically, basically, which is...
Yeah.
And
you wonder where... like there's archons of like your limbs, right, within Gnosticism. I forget which school it is, but like
archons are also emotions too. So
what's that?
Hate is a bad archon, love is a good archon. So again, like that can also be taken symbolically, even aeons as well. Aeons can be the same, or aeons can be ages as well. So all different meanings, different symbolically taken, interpreted differently, which is pretty cool. So all different mystery schools would have seen it differently, interpreted it different masters would have interpreted it differently, but ultimately it was just seeking their own truth, basically,
Yeah. So like, let's say you were, an ancient Gnostic or, Egyptian religion, devotee. Like, do you have a favorite within it, and like could see yourself as if you could go back in time and kind of be there? Is there like a...
I'd go to the Gnostics.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I would have been hunted down, too advanced for the times. Like, I've always had that sort of love for history and seeking and knowledge and stuff, and that was a very big Gnostic path. That's what intrigued me to it in a sense, because Gnosticism is an alternative to religion. It depends how you take it. There's religious sides of Gnostic, there's some sides as not, and it's rather they just seeing everything as an experience in a sense. So I'm sort of leaning towards that way. I see us all as God. I see God as around us, all of it. I don't really like using the word God though. I see God just as a title. So I just see it as energy itself, and we're living this experience through this energy. So this energy is learning through us. So all evolution is learning through us. So just a never-ending learning process, as a continuation of energy. The universe just continues expanding, and new life just continues over and over again. That's my take on Gnosticism. Then you have a religious side that believes Yaldabaoth existed. Not all Gnostics believed Yaldabaoth existed. So it depends on your own interpretations of the secret meanings. So if you don't understand the secret meanings, the story is secret to you. So, yes. And even now, you've got theist Gnostics that don't really believe in anything either. So different versions of Gnosticism, and it's always been like that. There's never been really one. It's always been everywhere. And that's because all the disciples that followed Jesus, they all had their own views and their own interpretations of the meanings. They all had their own ideas. And if you read some of the writings of Yeshua speaking to him, he said they're going to mess it up. They did. There's all these different versions of Christianities, and they're all fighting each other. That's because they've all interpreted it wrong. They didn't understand the secret meanings. They didn't take it symbolically. They all took it literally, And that was what the Gnostics were against, until take it symbolically, not literally, It's cool.
Yeah, especially, I'm reminded, I think it's the Gospel of Judas, where
I love Judas.
The disciples tell Jesus their interpretation of something. I forget what it was, but his response is, "You will lead thousands astray in my name," right? As he's laughing, right?
He also laughed at them for praying at the bread And they're like, why are you laughing at us? He goes, you're doing this because you don't know what you're doing. You've just been told to do it. And they get angry at him. He goes, what's wrong? Did I upset your inner God? And so he was talking about their own divine spark within themselves. So very much against the church hierarchy, you know. Very, very unique man. But yes, that scene that you mentioned as well, they mentioned they're going to be sacrificing kids on their altars and stuff, all in his name and stuff. That's Jesus saying that they're going to mess it up, you know.
Yeah, where the disciples go to him and says, we've all had the same dream last night. That there were 12 men sacrificing their wives, their kids, their animals on the altar. What does this mean? And he says, well, this is you worshiping your God.
Yep, 100%.
And it's interesting how he says your God, not God, right? That they're worshiping the demiurge.
Yeah, basically. And that's awesome that he was able to sort of point that out as well, because, and the reason I say this is because the disciples were torn between their old religions and following Jesus. Many different religions followed Jesus, heaps of them. There were Zoroastrians that followed him. The Magi, they were Zoroastrians. There were Greeks following him. Some Greeks believed he was Hermes, and there was Egyptians following him. So some believed he was Thoth reincarnated. And then you had some Jews, you had Essenes following him. So he was very, very popular because they seen a bit of themselves in his messages. He was giving power to the people. So he was very, very unique, you know, which is really cool. So he was saying that he also said in these things, he doesn't accept human praise or anything like that. So, and again, like he's speaking really symbolically, telling them that he says in the scripture, you're gods. And so this is what I mean. He's giving the power to the people, showing that they've got their own connection. They don't need to follow these hierarchies. And the hierarchies were very corrupt. They were selling lucky charms and saying, oh, you might get better, praise be God. And that's one reason Yeshua went through the temples throwing everything, because he took the oil and was told his followers, rub this on anyone that was sick. And that oil, it has cannabosum in it, which is cannabis, frankincense, myrrh, and cinnamon. That oil alone is so powerful. It can stop seizures, treat epilepsy, many different things. Boost your immune system, be a pleasant smell. So it was also used as a deodorant. So yeah, many properties. Also meant to be good for your meditations or your spiritual practices. They also use that for too, but it was very expensive. So that's why the Pharisees chose who they would rub a bit on. And if you wanted the regular treatment of it or regular oil, it would have been expensive. So I also see this sort of Jesus knowing, because I reckon he did travel to India. I think he traveled. And I think he would have picked up all different ideas of faiths and learnt and sort of seen the ultimate picture of everything is connected in a sense. So if over in the East, medical cannabis was used quite early. So if he sees that and he's gone back to his own home country and he knew, I see that as a big reason possibly why. He was probably following it, like rubbing it on people. So he would have seen the effect somewhere of what that oil was doing. Otherwise, why did he tell him to rub it on his followers? You know? So that oil was a big thing. And oil even goes to his name, Christ, or Christos, Meshach, which is anointed one, anointed with oil. Or it could be anointed with spirit. Depends on your interpretation of the text. But with Jewish language, a lot of words often mean two meanings. Like lavar means heart and mind. So, because they seem their mind and heart's connected, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you think Jesus went to India.
Yeah, I think he did.
Is that like during the periods where we don't have anything written on him? Like
I would say his missing years. Well,
yeah.
actually, something mentioned by Sadhguru once. Around that time, there was like a university of sorts, and it was outside the Roman reach of empire. So some people were sending their children over towards there, and India was trading with ancient Greece back then as well. So there's a possibility he probably went to that education place and learnt and had a much different idea of what things were going on. And that could also explain why. But India was traveling everywhere basically back then as well. There was actually a scene over in ancient Greece that they were being mistreated. So one of them lit themselves on fire. And it was actually Apollonius that was pretty much cracking the shit saying, oh, they'll accept these people. And he even went over India. Some of the Indian stories is also of Jesus going to India is also that of Apollonius mixed into it and stuff. Yeah, so some people even believe he possibly died over there. Yeah. And that's one reason why people think Jesus went to India. It wasn't him that died over India, it was Apollonius. So, or he was in the West somewhere. There's no one really knows, I don't think, where he's actually specifically meant to be buried, or it's just theories basically.
Mhm.
But yeah, some people think that Jesus' story and Apollonius is the same, but there's a bit of a difference. Like the miracles are completely different and stuff like that. But there is adaptations of everything. Everything is borrowed from somewhere, you know. But like we don't even really know Jesus' actual proper name. It's more speculation. It could be Yeshu, it could be Yeshua. But it's ultimately doesn't matter. It's the message that matters, you know. And that was one reason why he was popular, because it was his message. You know, it was very unique for the time in a sense, and loving, compassionate, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I see a lot of his teaching similarities with other religions too. And I see him as travel and a very wise man. Like even when he said about the kingdom of heaven is within you, the ancient Egyptians were speaking about this too. So he's a very smart man here. He's using adaptations of everything. So an early ominous in a sense, if you will. But honestly, the ominous is just basically a Gnostic, really, because they were the first to see secret truths in every doctrine or in every religion, in a sense. But they all seem sort of wrong because they all take it literally. They don't see anything symbolically, you know. So
Yeah.
the Gnostic word is very misused.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and some people say it shouldn't be used at all because maybe there's a better, because it's so broad.
Yeah, I still use it because it's just an easier way of identifying with it, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, they were
we're
just seeing themselves as Christian, you know. But the word Christian now is very misused, so I prefer to use the word Gnostic in a sense because you've got some messed up Christians out there as well. But that's with every religion. Everyone has their bads and everyone has their beautiful people, you know. Every religion's got beautiful people, every religion's got bad people, you know. But again, it's not everyone believes the Bible 100% now. Some people take it symbolically, which is even better. We still got people that believe it. You got some people that believe the world's only 10,000 years old and it's flat. It's like that's the damage of religion, you know. And that's actually blame on religion as well. That idea spread because the Gnostics were talking about how the world was spinning, and the last person that was said the world was spinning was actually burnt alive as a heretic. You know, so even the ancient Greeks discussed the world was spinning. Some Greeks believed there were two Earths and it actually helped it spin. So it doesn't mean they're always right.
yeah, that's an interesting idea. Two Earths
I thought so too. I actually
that help
forgot
it
who
spin.
put that. Yeah, to help it spin, to keep it in balance. So I forgot the technical reason, but I was really surprised when I learned that when I was looking at the documentary. I wish I saved it. If I ever find it again, I'll send it to you. But yeah, I found that pretty interesting about that. You'll be able to find it on YouTube somewhere as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
interesting.
that's
I've
the only one
that.
I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that there's like with ancient alien theory that there's what Nibiru that is an
Oh
alternate
yeah,
Earth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's where the what's it called? Some people believe where the Anunnaki live and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just new age stuff, you know. Those ancient aliens that brought through that, you know. I have a bit of beef with them. I remember when I first seen their channel, and I was like, I was on History Channel. I'm like, what the hell was this? They said Mount Olympus was a spaceship, and I was like, what? What are you doing? What the fuck is this History Channel? I stopped watching History Channel after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was when I first seen them. I was blown away. I never ever heard Mount Olympus was a spaceship, and because of that, we've made people stupid. And I had this argument with this lady a while ago, early on, and she's like, "Neanderthals come from space." I'm like, "Stop it! Go read a book." Yeah, ancient aliens. They're out there.
Yeah, well, it gets viewers, I guess. So, you know.
Yes, it sells their books.
Yeah.
Which I've noticed a lot of those groups, especially even with that David Icke, who believed he was Jesus at one stage, involved with Gaia and all that. I see them people as what's it called, as very cult-like. Cheers, that. This was my dad. I'm just having an interview. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
My dad and my brother was trying to say hello.
All right. Yeah, maybe if we'd want to touch on the idea of Satan in the Gospel of Mark. I think you had mentioned previously somewhere that Satan doesn't really fit in so much with Gnosticism?
Hmm.
Or
Well,
what are
even
your
with
thoughts on that?
Satan, it's not even in the Jewish part as well. In the Jewish ideology, um, ideology, he's an angel that serves God. So he's doing a good job. Basically, his job is to seduce mankind away from God, so that way mankind has free will. And if you go to Bogomilism, they believe Satan was this older son of God, and which was a type of Gnostics in the 10th century. They more
Mhm.
spread around Bulgaria, and also they even reached Kievan Rus, which is now Russia, and even got into the mixed into the Byzantine Empire as well. But they believed that Satan, or Satan Mill, I think his actual name was the son of God, and that he lost his creative power. So he created this material world, but he lost his power trying to seduce Eve. So Eve took his spark in a sense. So
Interesting.
a Gnostic idea in a sense, but a bit different. They were more Christian anarchists. So they believed that all politicians, well, back then, ruling elites, or the church hierarchy were all working for the devil in a sense. So again, that's taken from the early Gnostics and stuff, because Gnosticism was really hunted down. That's the later one. That's from the 10th century. And I think a bit before, I have to look it up exactly where the origins. Pretty sure it's 10th century. But that's because of persecutions, churches split, and that was around the same time as Waldenism, which were against possessions, and they were a different sort of Christian group. But yeah, no, Satan is just in the idea of, it's just a demiurge, basically. It's just they see as people worshipping something that's either doesn't exist, or as an evil creator god that's just there to trap humans, in a sense, in the material plane of existence, to keep reincarnated doing shitty things. But again, it depends on the term of Gnostics that you're looking at as well. Not all were religious, some were religious. So, yeah. But no, Satan doesn't really fit in the idea of it, in a sense.
Gotcha.
Especially with as I said, with some Gnostics that believe that demiurge is just you. So we're all either demiurge, we're all an archon, we're all Sophia, the mother, the father. So we're all, it's also your experience, basically. So you're good or evil, it depends. So once you you realize your divine spark within you, you no longer need to express yourself egotistically. When the mind can truly express itself, it won't do it egotistically, it'll do it lovingly and compassionately. So rather than Gnostics just seeing state of ignorance going against your true nature, your true self. So they see the true self as loving, in a sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, is that like was that a Gnostic school where they believe that like the demiurge is you, just like, the kingdom of heaven is in you, just like
Pretty much, yeah. Or it's just some just freelance Gnostics, in a sense. They were actually more considered lazy because they didn't go to church, they didn't belong to any particular faction, so they were called lazy for it.
gotcha.
I think they were a bit smarter, to be honest, because they just did them, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've not heard that take on it where the kingdom of heaven is in you, but also hell, sort of in a
Yeah,
way.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, the actual word, I've read it here. I think I'll find that word. The word hell that Jesus first used is Gehenna. And that means, I wrote it down, which is really good. It means a notorious valley just outside the walls of Jerusalem where they burn trash and even unclaimed bodies. And that's
Yeah.
because back then, that would have been like hell, having a non-decent burial. So not no one knowing where you are. So what Jesus is referring to, this is a true death of not knowing yourself. So being dead inside, the hell from within you. So again, like kingdom of heaven's within you. So it's hell or heaven. So it's your mindset, the quality of your mind. Carry your cross, carry your mind, carry your level of being. So he will speak in parables. And that's because it was a dangerous time to speak about this, So it was clever. And that's one reason he had the secret teachers, because you would have the insiders going in, what does this mean? They understood it had a meaning of the story. It wasn't just a story. And so people would ask him. And that's where the idea of secret teachers come from. So yes, he would have been teaching in secret, because if he spoke in parables and he was telling his insiders what they were meaning, a lot of them was confused, because he was ahead of his time. So a lot of them were torn between their own religious beliefs and what they were taught. And back then that would have been a big thing. Whatever you were taught was the go. You were told not to question your father or head of the household,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was a freelancer, free thinker, in a sense. That was what made him so attractive, in a sense. And what
Yeah.
made him leave the big mark on the world the way he did. You have to be smart to do that, for sure. And
Yeah.
even him writing shows education. So he was definitely a learned man, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And yeah, so you have anything else you wanted to touch on?
I'm happy with that
Before
one. That would be really, really great. I enjoyed this little chat.
Yeah,
I still
for
have to go say
sure.
hello to my dad before he runs away.
Oh, sure. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me, Elliot. It's always
Yep.
been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Yep. And thank you everybody for joining us. Have an awesome day.
Peace and love and many blessings.
Yep.
Thank you,
Yep.
Elliot. Have a
Yep.
lovely day.